End of the week, ladies and gentlemen. If it's in the news, on your mind, close to your heart, getting up your nose, on your chest, you want to thump the table, shake the tree, rattle the cage? We all get to feel that way. I'm getting to feel that way more often than I used to, I think. But anyway, welcome to the Court of Public Opinion, where we say the stuff that other people don't seem to want to say. Before we get into those remarks, the day, happy birthday if you're having a birthday, July 7. July the 7th. There's a lovely song called July, You're a Woman.
John Stewart.
John Stewart. And I think Reg Lindsay had a cover of it. I wonder how Reg Lindsay is these days. He was a South Australian boy, you know. Reg Lindsay. Yep. July, You're a Woman. More than any woman I have ever known. July 7. Oh, look, 1928. Sliced bread was sold for the first time by a baking company in Missouri called Chillicothe, using a machine invented by Otto Frederick Rohweder, described as the greatest forward step in the baking industry since bread was wrapped. I rather liked it when you went down to the shop and it was all crusty and just out of the oven, not wrapped and not sliced. Anyway, the best thing that ever happened since sliced bread. You know, that's a very common thing to hear people say. Tesla Motors produces its first mass market car, Model 3, 2017. Few of those around. I don't like them myself. Not that I've ever driven one, but they just don't appeal to me. George Cukor, American film director, My Fair Lady, Philadelphia Story, The Wizard of Oz, born in New York. He died in 83, but he was born in 1899. Arthur Conan Doyle, a British author, and the man who brought us Sherlock Holmes to life twice. He dies at 71, 1930. I must tell you a lovely story one day about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. A story about human nature. He was a great student of human nature. Scottish inventor Edward Arer, he was an explorer rather than an inventor, reaches Western Australia in 1850. I guess we named the Eyre Peninsula after him. Explorer. Traditional date chocolate, thought to have been introduced to Europe in 1550. 1890, same day, Henri Nestlé, German-Swiss industrialist, founder of Nestlé, which I always called Nestles. He dies of a heart attack at the age of 75. What else can I tell you about the day? The world's biggest sandcastle, 21.16. Now, would that be meters high or feet? Can't tell you. 2021, the world's biggest sandcastle, 21.16 high. Oh, I've got it here, yeah. 96.4 feet. Usually nearly 5,000 tons of sand needed. Denmark. Blokhus, Denmark. So it takes some patience and, well, I don't know. I've never been into building sandcastles, so I really don't know what drives people to do it. Ringo Starr, the British drummer, Yellow Submarine, wrote some nice songs too. Photograph. That was a good song, Pete. Do you remember the Photograph song?
No, I don't.
Oh, it was a good song. It was a good Beatles song. Talented fellow. A peace love activist. And he's also a knight. He was knighted. He was born in Liverpool, 1940. Ringo Starr. Naval cadet and future 39th President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, 21, weds Rosalind Smith in Plains, Georgia. She was 18. The year was 1946. The Spy Who Loved Me, the 10th James Bond film starring Roger Moore and Barbara Bach. Barbara Bach, by the way, who is also the wife of Ringo Starr. Very nice-looking lady. 1977. The introduction of Sharia law in Iran in 1980. This is after they got rid of the Shah of Iran, and they introduced the Ayatollah Khomeini and all of that draconian stuff, none of which has, over the years, got any better. Veronica Lake, who always had this beautiful blonde hair draped over one eye. I remember Veronica Lake, American actress. I Married a Witch. Sullivan's Travels was another one. Dies from hepatitis and acute kidney failure at 50 years of age, 1973. Very young. The first comic book, the very first comic book in the world, 1802. It was called The Wasp. Published in Hudson, New York. Hudson, New York. Its purpose was to criticize Republican politicians. Well, I don't know if it worked or not. Maybe it did. Who knows? I was talking to you yesterday about a reality check, just honestly thinking about the Reserve Bank putting the interest rates on hold and all the hand-wringing and the chest-beating that goes on in the media. And the media, of course, never says that the interest rates, one way or another, basically affect, in terms of mortgages, only a third of the population. The other third rents a property, and the other third would be self-funded retirees. But perspective and experience, well, you can't put an older head on younger shoulders, can you? But speaking of a reality check, can I be the first to predict that there will be, after 2023, no more reality television? I think it has run its race.
I hope you're right.
I think I am. I mean, I've seen a couple of examples of the more recent productions, and when people talk about the bottom of the barrel and they wonder what is at the bottom, there is probably a reality television show at the bottom of the barrel. Anyway, it's run its race. Normally you have, I don't know, a hit and miss rate for television shows that you put on. I know that reality television was a novelty, and it had a few hits, but it's run its course. It's awful. It's not even cheap and nasty. It's actually quite expensive. It certainly isn't going to return a reward to the perpetrators of this particular genre. I get the idea. It was different. It was worth a try. There may well be a good reality television show out there somewhere. I remember taking to Ian Holmes, who was the producer-in-chief at the old Channel 10 in Sydney in North Ryde. I took him an idea for a show, and I remember it was called At Your Own Risk. And it was for an idea of giving people a reward to take stupid chances with their life. And I think Ian liked the idea, but wouldn't have embraced the idea of the police knocking on his door when people decided to play At Your Own Risk. But I see elements of that old show that I wrote all those years ago. I see elements of it popping up. Maybe this stuff is not my reality. Perhaps it's your reality. I don't know. But again, I say that this will be the last year that we'll have to put up with this terrible stuff. Maybe the television stations are going to have to resort to shock horror. Maybe talent. Interesting programs. Maybe creative people. Look, you don't imagine that they'd be driven to trying entertainment, do you? Yeah. Extraordinary stuff. A great ad on television for the promotion of the South Australian government I saw, speaking of television. It went something like, thank you to the South Australian government for removing the stamp duty on the purchase of a first home. Really? We paid for that. We paid for that, really. Perhaps, could I ask you, what was stamp duty doing there in the first place? So to the South Australian government, please, at our expense, don't pat yourself on your back too vigorously, will you? In a story, while I'm on the subject, on Channel 7 News on Monday night, because we've talked about this before ourselves, you and I. The story was, no container goes uninspected. That was the gist of the whole story. Contraband being brought into the country, lots and lots of it. No container goes uninspected, the story went. I'm sorry, that's not right. Journalists worth their salt would be able to check those statistics. Now, I used to quote, I remember doing it only a couple of weeks ago here in the Court of Public Opinion. I used to quote that only 10% of containers entering Australia are checked, inspected. Now, when I heard this story on Channel 7, I went back to that story and I double-checked it. This year's figures, which Channel 7 could, of course, done that just as easily. And the story is that it's not 10%, less than 0.5%. Less than 0.5% of containers are checked. Is the media just a repeater station for government propaganda? Give me a media release and I'll read it in the evening news. Did anyone think to check out the facts? Would a news department allow that to go through to the keeper, let alone to the general public, without checking? I'm sorry, Channel 7, that's not really good. I couldn't believe this when I heard it. We brought it up on the program earlier in the week. The South Australian government, because I remember asking you the question what this merger was going to cost between the two universities, the two great universities here in South Australia. But the story I heard was the South Australian government, that's us, will commit almost $500 million, more than $500 million, towards the amalgamation of the Adelaide University and University SA. The Premier, an advocate for this merger, amazingly admitted publicly that he had not read the business plan. Hadn't read the business plan. What the hell is going on? The whole thing stinks. This is a real test for what is a pretty feeble opposition. You know, they should have been all over that. But where are they? In some dark corner, speaking with an obscure Scottish accent, I suspect. I shouldn't get so wound up, Pete. Perhaps I should take something.
No, I like it. Fire up.
I'm so glad to hear that we have a new National Corruption Commission. They're going to call it the NAC, National Corruption Commission. They're going to be looking at the relationships and arrangements that have been in place with the big consulting companies. Terrific. Hopefully also the $3 million deal between Brittany Higgins and the Commonwealth. And I think the Attorney General was the one who signed off on that. God, these guys with the neck, they're going to be busy. There's a lot to investigate. I wonder who it was who dictated to the ABC that their coverage of the Israelis intervening, and I guess if you were a little bit more direct, you'd say invading the Jenin refugee camp on the West Bank. Who was it who decided that the ABC would only cover this event from the Palestinian point of view. Now, I know where you're coming from. You're a bunch of lefties, I know that. But you have become so blatant in pursuing your agenda, it's quite incredible. You should have at least put up some token representation of what I would and a lot of other people would see as the truth, the Israeli point of view. They didn't go in there for their health. They didn't go in there because they found themselves bored on a Sunday afternoon. I think you are disgraceful. Ita, what are you doing? Do you agree with any of this? I've known you for years. I can't believe that you'd be going along with this leftist philosophy on absolutely everything. I wonder if they have a little red book. Pete, maybe they have a little red book, like Mao's little red book. They just sort of hand it out with all of the, to all of the ABC people. This is the ABC official view on everything. That densely packed refugee camp, right in the centre of Jenin, this city. It's hard to get at. Do you know what it is? I found out. The ABC could have found out. It is in fact a university of terrorism. It's not so much a refugee camp as a concentration camp. And terrorism is what they concentrate on. But the ABC wouldn't say that. Why, I don't know. Well, no, I do know. It's not the prism through which they see the world. Have I got any time left?
Yeah.
What does it tell you about this country? Our apathy, a compliant media, and of course this ideologically driven government. What does it tell you with these price increases? When the government came to power, talking about electricity, when the government came to power with the firm promise of a price reduction of $275 a year for every household. What a dishonest lot of rubbish. What do? It's obvious that this energy crisis has been brought upon us by the government, nothing else. They are bald-faced liars. And these guys could teach Whitlam a few things, I think. To be the most energy-rich country in the world, being subjected to these kind of price rises, electricity price rises, is totally ridiculous. And still, Chris Bowen, Energy Minister and of course Climate Change Minister, continues to blame the war in Ukraine. And not one journalist has the smarts to ask him why. How does the war in Ukraine affect the price of electricity in Australia? Ask him. It's unbelievable. These so-called political journalists are either too young, too stupid, or in the pocket of the Labor government. All of this is true. But many people can't say it publicly. Maybe they just don't get printed or don't get reported. God help us. God help us. Thank you for viewing the Court of Public Opinion. Have a wonderful weekend. And Pete and I will see you on Monday. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Believe in yourself, and goodbye for now.